America once tore itself in half. Brother fought brother, father fought son. 620,000 people died, more Americans than in every other war combined. How did one country end up killing itself, and how did it survive? To understand this, we need to go back to a deal that was always going to explode. Back in the early 1800s, America did not have 50 states. It started with just 13, and it kept growing. Every few years, a new chunk of land would ask to become a state. And every time that happened, the same terrifying question came up. Will this new state allow slavery or ban it? America had a government called Congress where every state got a vote. In 1820, there were exactly 11 states that allowed slavery and 11 that did not. Perfect tie. If one new state picked a side, that side would have more votes and could start making the rules for everybody. That is when a territory called Missouri said it wanted to join, and Congress lost its mind. Politicians screamed at each other for 2 whole years. Thomas Jefferson, one of the guys who helped build America, was an old man by now. He said the Missouri fight scared him like a fire bell ringing in the night. Then a smooth-talking politician named Henry Clay walked in with a deal. No more slave states. It stops here. You cannot tell us what to do. Boys, what if Missouri gets slavery? But we also let Maine join as a free state. Stays balanced. Then we draw a line across the map. Above the line, no slavery allowed. I guess that works. I hate it, but fine. They called it the Missouri Compromise, and Congress celebrated like heroes. A few weeks later, a school teacher in Virginia tries to explain the compromise to her class. She unrolls a big map and draws the new line with chalk. A kid in the back raises his hand and says, "Ma'am, what happens when they run out of room above the line?" She stares at him, then at the map. Then she quietly rolls it back up and changes the subject. That kid asked the one question nobody wanted to think about, but they had not fixed the problem. They just delayed it. And the two halves of America were turning into completely different worlds. The compromise was holding. No more fights in Congress. But underneath the surface, America was quietly splitting in two. And once you see the numbers, you are going to understand why this is always going to explode. By the 1850s, the North and South barely looked like they belonged together. Look at the map. See all that green farmland across the South? Cotton fields stretching to the horizon. About 84% of Southerners worked on farms, and the whole economy ran on the backs of enslaved people. Now look north. Factories on every corner. Railroad tracks crisscrossing entire states. Cities swelling with millions of immigrants arriving from Europe. The North produced 32 times more firearms than the South. If this were a video game, one side was upgrading to rocket launchers while the other was still using slingshots. I just got a machine that makes cloth ridiculously fast. Want one? No. Machines break down too much. So how do you make your money down there? Cotton. Mountains of it. With machines. With people. You pay people to pick it. Well, not exactly pay. These two halves needed completely different things from their government. The North wanted taxes on foreign goods. That way, people would buy stuff from their factories instead. The South wanted those taxes kept low so they could sell cotton overseas and buy cheap European goods. Every single issue pushed them further apart. Meanwhile, in Congress, a Southern cotton farmer and a Northern factory owner are sitting next to each other trying to agree on anything. The farmer wants the government to leave him alone. The factory owner wants government money for railroads. They cannot even agree on what time lunch should be. Two different worlds shoved under one roof. And the argument about to blow that roof wide open was heading straight for a little territory out west. Remember that line they drew across the map? The one that was supposed to keep the peace? Well, America kept grabbing new land out west. And every time it did, the same ugly fight would come back. Should slavery be allowed there? Whoever controlled the new territories would control the future of the whole country. So, in 1854, Congress came up with a new idea. Instead of drawing lines, let the people living in each territory vote for themselves. Sounds fair, right? Except both sides immediately started cheating. The territory of Kansas was up first. Pro-slavery families rushed across the border from Missouri to stuff the vote. Anti-slavery families flooded in from the north to do the same. And Kansas turned into a chess match where nobody followed the rules. I am here to make Kansas a free territory. I am here to make it a slave territory. Where are you even from? Missouri. Just crossed the border this morning. You cannot just show up and vote. You do not even live here. I do now. See that tent? That is my house. That is a bed sheet on a stick. It is called rustic charm. Kansas ended up with two separate governments, one pro-slavery, one anti-slavery, both claiming to be in charge. Then the voting stopped and the shooting started. They called it Bleeding Kansas, and it earned that name fast. Mobs burned down whole towns. Armed gangs raided farms in the middle of the night. One man named John Brown, a guy who believed slavery was evil and had to be destroyed by force, showed up with a wagon full of swords and led violent raids against pro-slavery settlers. Over 50 people died. Americans were already killing each other over slavery, and the actual Civil War had not even started yet. All it would take now was one election to light the fuse. November 1860. America was about to hold the most dangerous election in its history. The country was so divided that even the political parties had split apart. The Democratic Party, which used to be one big group, cracked right down the middle. Northern Democrats picked one candidate. Southern Democrats picked a different one. A third party showed up with yet another guy. And then there were the Republicans. This was a brand new party, only about 6 years old, built specifically to stop slavery from spreading. Their candidate was a tall, lanky lawyer from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's message was simple: slavery should not spread into new territories. He did not say he would end it where it already existed. He just said it should not grow. But to the South, that sounded like the beginning of the end. People today get this wrong. This war was not about slavery. It was about states' rights, about who gets to decide how we live. Here is the wild part. Lincoln was not even on the ballot in 10 southern states. His name literally did not appear on the voting paper. You could not vote for him even if you wanted to. If that Lincoln fellow wins, I am done with this country. He said he will not touch slavery where it exists. And you believe a politician? Okay, but what are you going to actually do about it? Leave. Watch me. You cannot just leave a country. Pretty sure we are about to find out. Down in South Carolina, a newspaper editor reads the election results by candlelight. He counts the numbers twice, then a third time. He puts the paper down, walks outside, and starts ringing the church bell at 2 in the morning. His neighbor storms out in a nightgown yelling, "What are you doing?" The editor holds up the newspaper and says, "Lincoln won. Start packing." Lincoln won without a single Southern vote. For the first time ever, a president was elected without any support from an entire region of the country. Southern leaders looked at the results and realized they lost control of the government, maybe permanently. The talking was over, and within weeks, states started walking out the door. South Carolina did not wait for Lincoln to take office. 6 weeks after the election, they voted to leave the United States. They believed Lincoln would destroy slavery, the foundation of their entire way of life. No negotiation, just goodbye. Then the dominoes fell. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas. 7 states vanished and built a new country called the Confederate States of America. They picked Jefferson Davis to run it. They needed a flag and an army. But there was a problem. Union soldiers were sitting in their harbors eating lunch. Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor refused to leave. Meanwhile, on a small farm in Virginia, 2 brothers sat on a porch. The older one was heading south to join the Confederacy. The younger one was staying loyal to the Union. Their mother walked out with 2 packed lunches, looked at both, and left them on the railing without a word. Lincoln took office on March 4, 1861, and got terrible news. Fort Sumter was running out of food. He had 3 options: send warships and start a war, abandon the fort and admit the Confederacy was real, or do nothing and let his men starve. He chose a sneaky move. He sent ships carrying only bread and pork. The Confederates were trapped. If they let the ships in, the fort stayed forever. If they shot a bread delivery, they looked terrible. He trapped us. Tell them to surrender or open fire. 4:30 in the morning, April 12, 1861. The sky was pitch black over Charleston Harbor. A Confederate soldier lit the fuse on a massive cannon aimed at Fort Sumter. The blast echoed like thunder. Dozens of cannons fired from every direction. The bombardment lasted 34 straight hours. Walls cracked, and fires broke out everywhere. The flag was shot down twice, and soldiers sprinted to put it back up. Thousands of cannonballs smashed the brick. Somehow 0 people died in the fire, but the blasts were heard across the country. Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers the next morning. 4 more southern states joined the Confederacy. Everybody figured the war would be wrapped up in 90 days. They were very wrong. 90 days. That is how long everyone figured this war would last. Newspapers in Washington printed headlines screaming onto Richmond. Folks packed picnic blankets and rode carriages to watch the first big battle at a creek called Bull Run. Real food, fancy cheese, opera glasses. Then the Union Army fell apart. Soldiers threw down weapons and sprinted back, crashing into carriages. In Connecticut, Tommy Aldrich signed up for his 90-day adventure. After Bull Run, the Army told him 90 days was now 3 years. He stuffed his letter in his pocket and marched. For months, Lincoln hid a secret document, the Emancipation Proclamation. His advisors begged him to wait for a victory. Then came September 17, 1862 at Antietam Creek. 22,000 soldiers dead in one day. The Confederates pulled back. Lincoln declared every enslaved person in rebel states forever free. 200,000 black men signed up to fight. The war to save the country became a war to end slavery. Summer 1863 brought two battles. Confederate General Robert Lee marched into Pennsylvania. Nobody planned to fight at Gettysburg. Confederate soldiers wandered into town because a store sold shoes. Their feet were wrecked. They bumped into Union scouts. By day 3, 165,000 soldiers were crammed around the town. Lee ordered a doomed attack across an open field. Nearly half his men were left on that hill. 1,000 miles west, Union General Ulysses Grant had Vicksburg surrounded. Inside the walls, a skinny soldier broke his last cracker in half and offered a piece to a stray cat. The cat sniffed it and strutted away. Lee collapsed at Gettysburg. The next day Vicksburg surrendered. The Union sliced the Confederacy in two. Lincoln chose Grant and gave him one order: end it. Grant attacked every single day. In 6 weeks during spring 1864, over 55,000 Union soldiers died. A mail carrier in Ohio dropped off a bag of letters. Every envelope was edged in black. 14 black-edged letters in one delivery for one tiny town. General Sherman captured Atlanta and marched to the coast, burning farms and railways. By April 1865, Lee was starving. On April 9th, he surrendered. 4 years of fighting and the country was won again. 5 days later, Abraham Lincoln went to see a play. John Wilkes Booth crept up behind him and pulled the trigger. The man who held America together did not live to see it.